Will everyone please stand and join me in welcoming the Japanese American University of Washington students of 1941 and 1942, and the representatives of those who could not be with us today. This honorary degree ceremony will be opened with the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner by Brandon Izutsu. Mr. Izutsu will complete his freshman year at the University of Washington next month. The audience will please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Brandon. Please be seated. It is my pleasure to present Dr. Mark Emmert, President of the University of Washington, who will preside over this ceremony.
Good afternoon, and welcome to what can only be described as a very, very special convocation. I'd like to begin by saying how truly honored we at the University of Washington feel to have with us today so many of the Japanese American students who were forced to leave the University of Washington in 1942. We are equally privileged to welcome the family members, relatives, and friends of those we have gathered here to honor. Thank you for joining us on what can only be described as a monumental day at the University of Washington. Today's ceremony is historic in many ways. It is historic in its unprecedented nature. The University of Washington and the Northwest region, and in its national and international prominence. We are reminded once again that what we do at the University of Washington can have a profound impact on our community and on our world. A great injustice was committed in 1942. We've come to acknowledge that injustice and to pay tribute to those who endured it and who triumphed so brilliantly over it. We do so with great resolve that such violations of basic human rights shall never again be permitted to occur in our nation. As a university, it's our obligation to speak the truth, and by doing so, to protect the fundamental values upon which our community is founded. We hope that today's ceremony offers evidence that we take that obligation very seriously indeed. That obligation starts with our Board of Regents, whom I would like to introduce at this time. The ultimate responsibility for the University of Washington lies with the members of the Board of Regents, 10 citizens who are appointed by the governor of the state and who devote many, many hours each year to the welfare of our university. 5 of those regents are with us today. Please hold your applause as I introduce each of them and ask them to stand. First, Stan Bayer, Chairman of the Board, Craig Cole, Fred Kiga, Aaron Lennon, our Student Regent, and Constance Proctor, Please join me in applauding our Board of Regents. Thank you for being with us. I would also like to introduce our former Regent, Scott Oakey, who is joining us to take part in this ceremony today and whose father is going to be recognized. Scott, thank you. In addition to the Regents, we have seated on the platform this afternoon many of the chief academic and administrative officers of the university, including the provost, whom you will meet later, the vice presidents, the deans of the schools and colleges, the leadership of the Faculty Senate, representatives of the Alumni Association, and faculty members from various colleges and departments of the university. I would like to ask them now to please rise so that we can recognize them as well. Please, all of you. Today's ceremony is the result of several years of research and work by many different university faculty members and staff. Long hours were spent researching the Japanese American students of 1941 and 1942 who were forced to leave the university. In the process, we learned a great deal about their extraordinary lives and how the university responded following the infamous Executive Order 9066, which led to the incarceration of more than 120,000 Japanese Americans, including 450 who were students here at the UW. At the time, the University of Washington had the second highest Japanese American enrollment in the nation, behind only the University of California at Berkeley. It was a time in history that brought out the very worst and the very best in people. Fear and racism were rampant. Even Japanese American faculty members, most of them American citizens, and one who was already a veteran of World War I, were forced to leave the university. But there were also those who consistently advocated on behalf of our Japanese American students. The president of the university at the time, Lee Paul Sieg, and the assistant dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Robert O'Brien, pleaded with the Army to let the Nikkei students finish their studies. 3 university professors and 2 students defended the interests of Japanese Americans at congressional hearings. Sadly, however, intolerance and hysteria ruled the day, and too few Americans expressed any moral outrage at what was being proposed. When it became clear that the evacuation plans were going to go forward, President Sieg wrote a letter to the dean to be considerate of the students' problems which they face, and to ask the students that the students be allowed to graduate without taking their final examinations, since they had no opportunity. A number of deans traveled to the Puyallup Fairgrounds, where thousands of local Japanese Americans were detained, to hold a brief graduation ceremony for UW students who were being held there. The university established a student relocation committee, which worked tirelessly to relocate at least 58 UW students to 15 different colleges in 12 states. There can be no denying the suffering of Japanese Americans during this time. Those that did not experience it can scarcely imagine the horror of being forced to leave your home and move to makeshift barracks in muddy camps patrolled by armed guards. The occasion of today's ceremony demands that we confront that injustice and dishonor and understand why it occurred. But let us also celebrate the courage and nobility of those that we honor today. We have much to learn from their example. As we reflect upon the past, let us also remember the voices of liberty and justice and human decency that lie within each of us, so that we may never allow them to be silenced again. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, someone of great distinction and for whom we are extremely pleased to have join us. Former United States Secretary of Commerce and Secretary of Transportation, the Honorable Norman Mineta. Prior to being appointed to his cabinet position, Secretary Mineta represented California's 13th and 15th districts in the U.S. House of Representatives for 20 years. He co-founded the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus and served as its first chair. As a congressman, Secretary Mineta was the driving force behind House Resolution 442, the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which officially recognized and apologized for and redressed the injustices endured by Japanese Americans during World War II. Indeed. In 1995, George Washington University awarded Secretary Mineta with the Martin Luther King Jr. Commemorative Medal for his contributions to the field of civil rights. It is our great privilege to have him with us here today. Please join me in welcoming and thanking Secretary Mineta. Norm? Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Mr. President, thank you very, very much for your very kind introduction. And while I was listening to you, I was thinking, where are my kids when I want them to hear something good about me? But more importantly, I cannot think of a place that I could be prouder to be at than here today at the University of Washington. As President Emmert has said, we are here today to celebrate the awarding of bachelor's degrees, honorary bachelor's degrees, to a group of men and women whose educations were disrupted by forces totally beyond their control or influence, but for which they were nonetheless held responsible and for which they paid a terrible price. But the message of today's event is a simple one, and one that I believe none of us should ever forget. It's never too late to do the right thing. It is never too late to rejoice that the right thing has finally been done. And it's never too late to be grateful to people who do the right thing. So thank you very much, Mr. President, to the regents, to the staff, to everybody here at the University of Washington for doing the right thing. It has now been almost 67 years since the forces of the Empire of Japan launched an unprovoked attack on the United States' facilities and installations at Pearl Harbor, Schofield Barracks, Hickam Field in Hawaii. And with that attack, the United States was thrown into a global conflict, a conflict that it would be not unfair to say was literally a battle of good versus evil. But there were many of us who had reason to worry that our dedication to that cause would be doubted. There were those in the United States who could not and would not make the distinction between those pilots of the imperial forces of Japan and those who were living in the states of Washington, Oregon, and California, who were Americans but by accident of birth were of Japanese ancestry. And because we were Americans of Japanese ancestry, something that until a few decades ago, many Americans would have considered to be a contradiction in terms. And I suspect that everyone here who is old enough to remember that day has a unique recollection of the attack on Pearl Harbor. For me, as with many of you, it will always live in my memory as the first time that I ever saw my dad cry. He had immigrated by himself at the age of 14 and been in America for over 40 years. My mother was a picture bride who had been here for over 30 years. And they came to this country in search of a better way of life for themselves and their children. And they found it. And along the way, they had fallen in love with their adopted country. They loved what it was, and what they loved what it might one day grow to be. Because of that, my family's memories of December 7, 1941, are probably different than most. We had just returned from church that Sunday when we had heard what happened. And as an 11-year-old boy, I didn't know what to make of the news. But I saw the look on my father's face as he realized that the land of his birth had attacked the land of his heart. That is something I will never forget. He was in total anguish. That's when I saw him crying profusely. But never once did he or any of us have a single doubt about where our loyalties lay. Unfortunately, that was not something our government or many of our fellow Americans were prepared to understand or believe. Their reaction is one of the reasons we are here today. Because, like so many Americans of Japanese ancestry on the west coast of the United States, the men and women we honor here today were turned upside down and their plans for their own future put in danger. Like all Japanese Americans, their loyalty to this country was not just called into question, it was dismissed. We were called untrustworthy, disloyal, among other things. Our lives were uprooted, and we faced the terrible burden of being considered enemy aliens in our own country. The men and women we honor today were doing what we were all told good Americans do: study hard, work hard, get a college degree, and find a way to make a unique contribution to the life of this country. But they found their educations disrupted by those who did not trust them simply because of their ancestry. The story of the internment is one that all of you know. The fact that you do know that story is the result of decades of dedicated work by men and women committed to the idea that the lessons of history should not be lost. The journey from 1941 to 2008 has been a long one for our community. We struggled to rebuild our lives after internment. We struggled to build a new life for ourselves in the fabric of the American society. It was to be over 40 years before the government of the United States finally recognized that our forced evacuation and internment were wrong. But there was something that convinced us not to lose the hope that it would happen one day. Our fellow Americans, for every act of injustice that we suffered, we encountered an act of kindness as well. So many of us lost farms, businesses, and homes. But many of us returned home to find that those farms and those businesses and those homes had been protected by friends who refused to forsake us. And even in the camps, we encountered people who volunteered to share our burdens, especially the Quakers who entered the camps as doctors and nurses and as teachers, and whose work and dedication we have never forgotten nor will ever forget. And in the decades that have followed, we found friends and allies of every race and gender, religion, and sexual orientation who refused to let the injustices that we had suffered pass by without redress. And with their help and their support, we not only won recognition that the evacuation and the internment was wrong, but a national commitment that nothing like it would ever happen again. Mr. President, your decision to award these degrees aligns this university with those American heroes. And I think this university can take great pride in which it has placed itself today. So to all of the graduates of the class of 2008, congratulations. Whether it was in the military service of the 100th Battalion, the full 42nd Regimental Combat Team, the Military Intelligence Service, or the men and women who served in the military in all branches at that time. These men and women continued to pursue their professional, career, and vocational goals. And in doing so, all of you contributed to the status that all of us have been able to achieve. Those of us who have followed stand on your shoulders, and for that we are eternally grateful. Your drive and your perseverance in the face of impossible odds have more than earned the degrees that you are receiving today and the progress and the standing of the Japanese American community. And to the University of Washington, we thank you. Thank you for doing everything that you've done to finally make right that which was wrong. No one could ask for anything more. God bless each and every one of you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America.
It gives me great pleasure now to introduce to you the Provost and Executive Vice President of the University of Washington, Dr. Phyllis Wise, who will introduce the Voices from the Class video. Dr. Wise.
In preparing for this very important event, we had the good fortune of being able to interview some of your classmates. and share, so that they could share their recollections of the University of Washington in 1941 and 42, and how the events of that period impacted their lives. The video that you are about to see was compiled from those videos, from those interviews. We sometimes forget how important it is to hear the voices and the records of individual stories of those who have not just lived through history, but have created it. So we're very grateful that these individuals were willing to share with us some of their experiences. Like so many aspects of today's ceremony, this video represents a collaboration of many wonderful people, staff from the Alumni Association and the UW Libraries, current University of Washington students, and our friends in the community. I'm very pleased to present you these voices from the class.
On December 6, 1941, over 440 Nikkei students were attending the University of Washington. On December 7, 1941, everything changed. Lives uprooted, dreams deferred. By mid-May 1942, there were no Japanese American students at the University of Washington. All the future. Most were forcibly evicted from their homes and incarcerated in American-style concentration camps. Others relocated to colleges outside the restricted West Coast. Some enlisted in the military, and others resettled in the Midwest and East Coast, never to return to Seattle.
I don't think I even had to decide to go to the university because my father, for that age, for that time, was very liberal, I would say, and even if he had 4 daughters, he expected us all to go to college.
My major was biology, zoology. I had no other interest. If they didn't have biology or zoology, I don't know, I probably wouldn't have come to UW.
It was always in my mind and my parents' mind that I should go to the University of Washington because they stressed that education would get you somewhere after in the work world. And it was a assumed fact that I would be coming to the UW because that was the only facility that was readily available to me.
It took me 2 years to complete 1 year because I had to help my mother in the grocery store. So I just took my time. So a 2-year freshman.
I started off in the chemistry department. And after, I think, less than a term, I decided that science as such was not my forte.
I was working from a room and board, so I didn't get too involved in campus life. I come from a family of 7 children, so I had to pay my own way through college.
And we were members of the Japanese Student Club, which was a house on 15th Avenue. And we would check in there before we go to class.
And the campus is so huge. And I couldn't believe that I'm actually here going to the university. It was quite a thrill.
I do remember one thing about my first quarter. I had a good time. And registrar gave me a warning. He said, you are going to flunk out if you don't bring your grades up.
Looking around, I didn't know where any of the buildings were, and I was standing right in front of the building that I was looking for.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
When the news came over about Pearl Harbor, my dad and I were talking about Pearl Harbor. Where's that? Never heard of Pearl Harbor.
Terrible shock to me. although I knew that war would be starting soon, as I'd been keeping up with the newspaper articles. And then the thing was, what is going to happen to me, as well as my parents, who were not citizens because they weren't eligible to become citizens?
The Japanese were fighting America. That seemed impossible to do, but it happened. And I think everybody had the same feeling that how could Japan even think of winning the war, attacking America?
After December 7th, I pondered about whether I should continue school or not, because my mind was not on studying. I was thinking about the future, what will happen to the Japanese American community.
The couple I was staying with, I guess she got scared of me, so she asked me to leave.
I went through many experiences which fortified my self. And I'm walking down the Ave over there. One white lady came right directly at me and spat at me and said, "You dirty Jap." And from then on, I knew I was going to run into a lot of those kind of prejudices and ill feelings toward us. And then on the way to school, when I would take the bus, the Chinese would be wearing their Chinese badge saying, "I'm Chinese," to distinguish themselves.
I can recall the first thing, one of the first things that the president of the University of Washington did. He wrote a letter to a number of college presidents around the U.S. Suggesting or encouraging them to consider accepting and students who were to be removed from the West Coast at their colleges.
The school called all the Japanese together and mentioned the fact that we would have to move, but then the government have a volunteer program that if you went east, well, they would pay for your transportation to that particular college that you wanted to attend.
At the time that I had to leave the university, I had just turned 21. And that year was a year that I was going to be eligible to vote. And that made me very sad that my rights were taken away. And then when I had to leave my home, I had to lease it out to an Italian couple. At that time, when the evacuation notices were posted on the telephone post, it didn't include the Germans or Italian descent person. I thought it was really unfair. But I did lease my house out to this Italian couple. And I left some of our precious kimonos and things like in the basement. And when I came back, it was gone.
My thoughts were mostly concerns, not about myself as a student, but for the family, because we didn't know what the family was getting into or where they were going. So it was mainly a matter of sticking together.
But we were shocked that they had fence around the whole compound, and the armed guards were guarding it. So it was a shock. But fortunately, there's a lot of other people with you. So it wasn't like you were all by yourself and put in the jail halls.
In May 2008, some of these students made the long journey home to the University of Washington to be recognized and to receive an honorary degree.
Honorary degree, I think, is an opportunity to sort of enjoy or at least reminisce about our experiences on the West Coast.
It's awesome. It's unbelievable. It's just absolutely wonderful. I've always wanted a degree, and to get this honorary degree is very humbling.
For the university to recognize us and honor us for this special day. So I feel very, very grateful.
I feel that I've come full circle, that I'm really a part of the university. It's like a family to me, because 3 of my children have graduated from the University of Washington, and a couple of my grandchildren are coming to the U right now. So I feel like I'm embraced by the whole family of the university.
It is now time to award the honorary degrees. The degrees will be conferred by President Emmert, Regent Bearer, and Regent Kiga.
Regent Bear and Kiga, could you join me, please? Regent Bear, Regent Kiga, I have before me the list of 449 Japanese American students who were enrolled in the University of Washington in 1941 and 1942, and who were prevented by Executive Order 9066 from completing their studies. As president of this university, and on behalf of the deans of the schools and colleges and the faculty, I am pleased and honored to present to you all of the candidates herein named and recommend that each of them be awarded the degree Bachelor of Arts, honoris causa, nunc pro tunc tunic, now for then. Regent Kiga, may I ask you to read the honorary degree citation?
Thank you, Dr. Emmert. It is indeed a pleasure and honor to be able to read this citation today, not only as a third-generation Japanese American Sansei, and as well a nephew of an honoree today, Francis Bako Kinoshita. Hopefully I can do this without too much emotion as well. Japanese American students at the University of Washington in 1941-1942, whose lives were untimely interrupted, who were taken away, lifted from your homes, and incarcerated for your Japanese ancestry. We come together today to honor you and to confer upon you what rightly should have been yours decades ago. In the dim fog of war, the threads of fear and intolerance wove a clouded shroud. We gather to dissolve that shroud and enlighten. You have shown us the way. You have taught us perseverance, integrity, and loyalty that will not be weakened or compromised. You have demonstrated that an indomitable spirit transcends hardship, and that dignity is inviolable. You have taught us of impregnable family bonds, of parents who give wings to their children's dreams, and children who revere and protect their parents. You have taught us that true greatness lies in an open heart, a steadfast presence that does not bend under provocation, and a willingness to forgive. You have taught us the critical importance of speaking out in defense of our civil liberties. You have sacrificed to preserve a nation committed to liberty and justice for all, so that all might one day comprehend the true meaning of freedom. So much was taken from you, yet you have given much in return. You have traveled a long, arduous road. We remember those who have died along the way and those still living who could not be here for this moment. We remember all who stood with you against blind prejudice and offered support during your journey. A trust was violated. We come together to restore. We acknowledge the injustice of the past, and we walk with you now into the future. For your courage, your grace, your magnanimity, for your remarkable achievements in the aftermath of what you endured, for your allegiance to your principles and your country, the University of Washington is proud to confer upon you the degree of Bachelor of Arts, honoris causa, nunc pro tunc.
I know this degree is called an honorary degree, but in no way is that to signify that each of you honored today did not fully earn your degree. What you experienced taught you more about humankind, gave you greater insight to this earth than anything you could have learned at the University of Washington. So when you receive this degree, please understand that the Regents grant this to you as fully earned. The term honorary means that you earned it in the most possible honorable way. Thank you. It has been said by several today that this is long overdue. And to take just a moment, there is a certain symmetry to things that are overdue. When I was a young boy, I grew up in Walla Walla, Washington, and there were a number of Japanese families there who were taken to the camps. It was many years later that I learned that my father and mother had taken care of two of those families, paid their mortgages, paid their taxes, paid all their bills that came due, so that when they came home, they had everything that they had left behind. I didn't know that. I was a young kid when this happened. My father passed away over 20 years ago. I wish he was here today to know that as a regent, I had a small step in following his example, and I'm very proud of that. I think as regents who do have the authority, the only authority to grant this degree, we spend a number of years discharging the business of the university. But today, without question, will be the most profoundly important act that we will have the opportunity to do during our term of regents. Therefore, upon recommendation of the University of Washington faculty, by authority of the Board of Regents vested in me as current chair, I confer upon each of you the degree of Bachelor of Arts, honoris causa non protunc. Congratulations, your university, and it surely is your university as much as anyone's, is very proud of you, and we welcome all of you into the ranks of University of Washington alumni. The conferring of these degrees, as I mentioned, has been long overdue. As we read your name, please stand to be recognized and to accept the memento of this occasion. Thank you.
Jun Yoshiko Kumakura Momoda.
Tokie Nishimoto.
Shigeru Momoda.
Hisako Sato Tashiro.
Margaret Nakagawa Iwata.
Chio Nakata Horiuchi. Tama Koriyama Murotani Inaba.
Shizuko Higano.
Gordon Hirobayashi.
Norio Higano.
Tama Tokuda.
Sadako Nakamoto.
Mitsi Mihara.
Hajime Jimmy Akutsu.
Noburo Shimizu.
Kiyoshi Yamashita.
Takako Yoda.
Kiyo Sakahara.
Hiro Nishimura.
Marjorie Matsushita Sperling.
Kenji Okuda.
George Gogio.
Shigeki Paul Kasuguma.
Bob Oki.
Frank Tanabe.
Tomie Nishimoto Nakamura.
Seibo Fuji.
Hiroshi Odoi.
Robert Urata.
Arthur Abe.
Esther Kambe Oda.
Masaru Harvey Odoi.
Teru Nakata Kiyohara.
Frank Shigeo Tanagi.
Minoru Uchimura.
George Numata.
Hamako Kawamura.
Marsha Inoue.
Henry Dati.
Mabel Kyo Shigaya Ida.
Chieko Tanagi.
Frank Mukai.
William Toshio Yasutake.
George Mukai.
Toshiyuki Kawanishi.
Tomiko Inoue Yamamoto.
Irene Hisako Kimura.
Tom Ueno.
Etsumi Takizawa.
Ben Ueno.
Ted C. Fujioka.
Margaret M. Arase.
Mika Hayano.
Kiyoshi Hoshide.
Cherry Tatsuda Fujioka.
Haruo Kato.
Toshi Kawako Shima.
George Iwao Hayashi.
Ken Shigihara.
Frank Chusei Watanabe.
Francis Tsukasa Kinoshita.
Harry Taniguchi.
Fumiko Shitamae Nishi.
Ruth Tahara Yasutake.
Alice Miyazawa Shimomura.
Fumi Fukiage.
George Umemura.
Sachie Fukiage.
Mary H. Kanno.
Harry Fukiage.
Noboru Sato.
Daikichi Hata.
Henry Morio.
Hiroshi Fujita.
Noboru Morio.
Yoshihiko Tanabe.
Mary Shimoda Morio.
Teruko Akagi Brooks.
Jack Iwao Tachiyama.
Satoshi Kusumi.
Minoru Araki.
Ruth Yoshimoto Kosaka.
Joshi J. Yorioka.
George Kosaka.
Alice Miyoko Yoshioka Yamamoto.
Chie Aoki Nakata.
Yoshio Kato.
Henry Masami Noritake.
Toshio Hori.
Roy Cole.
Sumiko Akimoto.
Miki Mikitoshi Hiro.
Henry Imori.
Mary S. Shigaya.
Lillian Skie Inanna.
Sueko Sumioka.
Kathy Yamanishi.
Toyoko Hasegawa.
Tadao Sunohara.
Ken Tanaka.
Bessie Inoue.
Takashi Matsui.
Kazuko Bill.
Kazuo Kanda.
Ruby Inoue Shu.
Hiroshi Nakagawara.
Thomas Hikida.
George Nojima.
Ryo Kumasaka.
George Kumasaka.
Keizo Kei Shigeno.
Matthew Sato.
Mamoru Takashima.
Albert Y. Ochi.
Marion Mizuki.
Margaret M. Ochi.
Frank Eiichi Oikawa.
Mariko Fujioka.
Robert M. Yamasaki.
John Yoshida.
Yasuo Gus Nikaitani.
Betty Yasunobu.
Mei Kurose Joichi.
Phyllis Yasunobu Fuji.
Robert Nakano.
Edna Yasunobu.
Tom Tomikichi Onishi.
Nobuo Frank Takano.
Lillian Kubota.
Noboru Inamoto.
Mary Nishimura Seike.
Seiichi Deguchi.
Yeizi Okiyama.
Thomas Semba.
Henry Yorozu.
Betty Shinozaki.
Grace T. Matsumoto Sakai.
Mary Toribara Cheney.
Toshiyuki Fukushima.
John H. Sato.
Yoshio Tom Tamura.
Edward Masao Tsutakawa.
Jean Wakabayashi.
Anna Chio Mitamura Ando.
Teiji Okano.
Tak Sakuma.
Toru Bill Ogasawara.
George Yoshihiko Yano.
Hiroshi Roy Inui.
Mei Kubota Yano.
Toru Sakahara.
David Takinori Miyauchi.
Yukie Fukuzawa.
Kyoto Abe.
Toyo Nishimura.
Hachiro Hashiguchi.
James Mizuki.
Akira John Takekawa.
James Hajime Mizuki.
Daisho Miyagawa.
Y. Nishimura.
Daiki Miyagawa.
Jiro Yamaguchi.
Watson Asaba.
Kei Yamaguchi.
George Yoshiharu Mamiya.
Warren Koichi Suzuki.
Margaret Ichigoshima Shiozawa.
Hiroshi Henry Hirano.
Rei Ichigoshima.
Kimiko Takatsuka.
Kane Ken Senda.
Mei Imori.
Yutaka Semba.
Sho Imori.
Mario Natsuhara, Hague.
Sumi Takehara.
Jack Hisayasu.
Etsu Edward Kajiwara.
Robert Yoshihiko Honda.
Louis Kurahara.
Mitsuyoshi Shimada. Bell Masayuki Shimada.
We have a final one here, and the recipient of this, well, the person who received it is a representative, and it's Professor Mike Egawa. It is for his father, Hiroshi Eguchi.
We are very privileged to have with us today one of the UW students who received their diplomas in 1942 at the graduation ceremony that was held at the Puyallup detention camp. She went on to earn her Doctor of Education degree at the University of Northern Colorado and worked for many years as a senior consultant to the Colorado State Department of Education, specializing in special education for secondary students. She has received numerous awards for her educational and community activism and currently serves on the Denver Public Schools Asian Education Advisory Council. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Chio Nakata Hori.
President Emmert, members of the Board of Regents, and Honorable Norman Mineta, members of all the organizations who planned the memorable program today, all honorees, ladies and gentlemen. I feel most honored to represent the UW Nikkei Students of 1941 and 42. We thank you for recognizing the injustice of the forced incarceration of Japanese Americans in World War II. We need to reflect on the past in order to recognize the achievements of the honorees. Let us step back into the 1930s and 1940s. We were discouraged to enter in such fields as engineering, finance, education, and journalism, because there would be no jobs open to us when we graduated. In reflecting on my first major, it was political science, of all things. I was questioned, why political science? You're a woman. Take home economics. It was an era when most women did that. I was steered into a home economics major, but quickly found that it was not my cup of tea. The local clergy encouraged all of us to become ambassadors of goodwill. And years later, I changed to Oriental Studies, now called Asian Studies. 3 years later came World War II. My goals as that, as well as those of the Nikkei classmates, took a drastic turn. In the spring of 1942, evacuation orders were posted on telephone poles all over the city. I was accommodated to take my exams early and packed for camp. On May 10, 1942, we left for Puyallup Assembly Center. In approaching the center, the barbed wire fences and the tower with armed guards gave us the message. We were prisoners. My immediate action was to get the heck out of there. We were raised as American citizens and we did not belong there. I got my BA degree in the grandstands of the Puyallup Fairgrounds. While it was wonderful that the UW administrators drove to Puyallup to confer some of our degrees, it was a total letdown after 4 years of college to receive my degree at the fairgrounds. We decided to try to get out of camp as soon as we could. After many hours of government-required paperwork, we were on our way to Boulder, Colorado, to attend the University of Colorado. But upon arrival, we were told that the doors were closed to all evacuees because a Naval Japanese language school was there on campus. People are curious as to how we coped with such adversities beyond our control. As for me, for the next decade, my husband and I programmed ourselves to further our education at Denver University. My husband went first and majored in business administration, while I raised 2 children. When my children were in secondary schools, I ventured out and later my doctorate in education. In the decades from 1940 to 1960, times had changed due to the efforts of many to achieve social justice in the United States. I could enter the field of education. I majored in regular education and special education, the latter choice because I felt those students at the time were neglected and not given a fair opportunity for education or even denied it. I had learned a lesson from my wartime experience that good people have to speak out for justice and fairness for all. My story is just one of 450 stories here and is perhaps not a typical story. My classmates were deeply impacted by their wartime incarceration without due process. Their stories of courage and perseverance in the face of adversity are an inspiration to all of us. We are grateful to the University of Washington for this honor and thank all who worked to make this possible. In closing, I ask that we have a moment of reflection to remember and honor our classmates who have died and those who are unable to attend this wonderful ceremony. And most importantly, to remember our Issei parents who did indeed give wings to our dreams. Thank you.
Our closing speaker today is Dr. Tetsuden Kashima. Dr. Kashima received his PhD in sociology from the University of California in 1975 and came to the University of Washington as the Director of American Asian Studies in 1976. He is currently Professor of American Ethnic Studies. Dr. Kashima is the author of Judgment Without Trial, Japanese American Imprisonment During World War II. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Tetsuden Kashima.
Today, we witness a lesson in history. In 1942, our government officially severed a personal bond between the University of Washington and today's honored Nikkei students. Through no fault of these students, our government summarily ordered them to leave this campus. Of course, this deed was actually part of a larger West Coast mass exclusion and incarceration program that targeted all persons of Japanese ancestry, most of them American citizens. Even I, a year-old American-born child, was kept for 3 years at the Topaz, Utah War Relocation Authority. We cannot negate the past, but we can learn from it. When I came to the University of Washington, my department, American Ethnic Studies, did not even exist. Since then, I've observed the evolution that has occurred in the teachings of subjects related to America's ethnic and racial minorities. My research has focused on the experience of Japanese Americans during World War II. Other professors in my department and the college explore themes related to the Chicano or African American experience. Together, we learn lessons from the past, influenced present actions, and ensure that previous injustices do not reoccur. It is today widely recognized that an egregious error was committed in 1942. Indeed, 4 American presidents have publicly repudiated or apologized to all affected Japanese Americans for that 1942 incarceration program. This is a lesson for all Americans. We can learn from the extraordinary way as well in which our honored students today faced and dealt with that gross injustice. After the war, many of our honored students started families, raised their children, and are today the proud parents of an equally remarkable group of fellow Americans. Among our honored students is a father with 4 children who are University of Washington graduates. Another is a father of 3 UW graduates, and 2 of his grandsons are presently attending the University of Washington. Others were able to complete their university education elsewhere, and many went on to have distinguished careers. Some never completed their undergraduate degrees, yet their accomplishments are no less valuable and praiseworthy. Many work to assist their aging parents, to support their younger siblings, and to feed their growing families. For some, today's celebration comes too late. Some never survived World War II. 69 of them served in the United States military, putting their lives in harm's way. 12 died in combat and gave their all for our country. Many others have passed away in the intervening years from 1945 to the present. We all wish that this celebration had taken place earlier for them. We also send our best wishes to those still living who are physically unable to be with us today. We pause in our busy lives to honor these Nikkei students. On behalf of those of us at the University of Washington, members of the local Japanese American community, and our friends in Washington State and across the nation, we express our sincere and warm best wishes to the continued health and happiness to the honorees and their families. It is our sincere hope that today's ceremony heals a wound and completes an important unfinished task. A unity is now reestablished between these honored students and their rightful alma mater. Today, we have learned from the past, and the University of Washington is proud to be able to redress a grave injustice. For these 449 UW Nikkei students, this is a real homecoming. The honorees tell us that in their hearts, they know they were always UW Huskies, and they were proud of it. Now, from today, and for all their tomorrows, we have officially affirmed that sentiment and made it into a reality. Welcome home, we say to the University of Washington's Nikkei class of 2008. Thank you all for coming and making this a joyous occasion.
As part of today's ceremony, you, our honorees, will all be presented with a copy of the book, The Fountain and the Mountain, a beautiful history of the University of Washington campus. You're also all now full-fledged members of the University of Washington Alumni Association. We invite everyone to meet with the honorees at a reception immediately following the conclusion of the ceremony. The reception will take place in one's room upstairs and in the foyer. This special academic convocation of the University of Washington, honoring the University of Washington Japanese American students of 1941 and 1942, is now closed. The audience is requested to remain seated until the recessional is concluded.